Good morning. This is the Innovation Conversation. I'm Kevin Coop.
And I'm Tom Furphy.
Good to see you again, Tom. It's so great to see you're not at home. You're on the road, how terrific is that? It warms my heart.
It feels really good.
Hopefully, I'll be joining you soon.
I flew a red eye last night, and I fly Delta, and this was the first time that the middle seats were open. Or not open, were released, and the plane was chock full.
Really?
So yeah, people are back traveling. For those of you that travel,
everybody wearing masks.
Yeah, mask compliance was awesome. Yeah, and no complaints. Everybody was great.
Yeah, be weird sleep. I mean, for people, those of us who like to sleep on planes, I'm wondering, will I be able to sleep with a mask on? I'm just wondering.
I had no trouble going to sleep, but I did wonder if I was going to wake up, and I did.
Well, that's good. So anyway, it's been sort of a lot of Amazon news since last we talked. I just want to hone in on a couple of things that I thought were interesting. The big story, I think, was the prediction that Amazon will actually be bigger in terms of retail sales than Walmart than 2025. And my first thought was, well, Tom Furphy's been saying that forever. That's not a new prediction. My other thought was that, well, Tom's been saying that as long as I've known him, but I realized that you hadn't even gone to work for Amazon when you and I first met. So probably you didn't say it then. But in fact, you've been saying for a long time that the growth curve was such that eventually Amazon was going to have more retail sales than Walmart would, which is a major sort of occurrence or benchmark in their growth. Happened a little later than you thought. What does that have to do with? Is that just because have they been slower than you thought, or has Walmart been better than you thought?
There's a few things at play there. When I was making those really bold predictions, 10 years ago, 11 years ago, it was really just based on the curves, right? Amazon was growing at 35-40% year over year, and Walmart was growing at 2 or 3 year over year. So it's just math going forward to see them cross. When I was making predictions, I was thinking it would be more like 2020, 2021. But I was doing on Amazon's global retail business. And the new reports are on Amazon's US business. So it's Amazon US versus Walmart US.
Okay.
Although I think the wording in a lot of the articles still talk about just retail in general, not specific to the geography. So I think that's part of it that pushed it out a little bit. And then, Walmart has done a pretty good job in the last couple of years at digging in and fighting in e-commerce. And, they're a strong number 2. And, I think they're getting rewarded for that in their growth. So that did help them stave off, that ceding that number 1 position to Amazon for a few more years.
It's interesting. I mean, the thing about the Amazon retail sales number is that more than 50% of it is not even them. It's third-party marketplace, which allows them, which changes the economics of how they recognize those sales and the profit they see and things like that. So I would imagine at some level, the 2025 number will depend to some degree on the level to which Walmart is able to be successful with its marketplace, because it's clearly trying to get into that same space, as is everybody else and their brother. Well, not everybody, but a lot of companies at this point. You were going to say, go ahead.
No, I said but marketplace business, it's not just you just open up a marketplace and it succeeds, right? I mean, it's a hard business to do well in, right? Vetting the partners that are in there, vetting the assortment, how you show that assortment versus your retail product, all of the promise behind that as far as price competitiveness, delivery terms, all that stuff. It's pretty hard to do. And Amazon is adding thousands of merchants per day.
Right.
So their growth rate in their third-party business and their platform business is actually faster than their core retail business. And you see the overall mix of their products. I remember it wasn't that long ago that it got to 50-50, right? Where half of their products sold were retail and half were third party. And now it's like closer to 60-40, in favor of third party over retail. So it's going to be a daunting task for anyone to keep up with it. I do think most retailers, if you want to serve a broader set of customer needs, you're going to have to partner in some form of marketplace. So it's good that they're doing it, but it's going to be tough to keep pace with Amazon.
Yeah. I mean, for Amazon, certainly, because of its pure size and sort of ubiquity, depending on that third-party marketplace for a lot of its growth, does bring with it its own problems in terms of, regulatory questions. I mean, antitrust issues, things like that. Whether or not they're going to be forced to break things up or not is another issue, and we can talk about that for hours. But it certainly raises the level of scrutiny they're getting from the regulators.
Yeah, I mean, I could see that. And I know when, those hearings were happening, a few months back, a lot of the discussion was around third-party sellers and the treatment of third-party sellers. And, I'm not sure a whole lot came of that, because I think ultimately when you really drill in and understand what's happening in that environment, I think Amazon does offer a pretty fair, level playing field. And if they didn't, I think they know it would come back to bite them. But I think they also know if they don't create a good merchant experience, they're not going to attract merchants. Yeah. Not that they're perfect. I'm sure they're, and they're a tough partner. They do ruthlessly advocate for their customers and their shareholders, right. Which means they're going to push you hard on terms. If it pushes you to the point where you just can't make money on their platform, you have a choice. You can decide to stay on the platform and not make a lot of money, or you can leave the platform. But over time, if they push that too hard and it forces too many to leave, then it becomes kind of self-defeating.
It's interesting. And this is just anecdotal, but we were, we had some friends over the other night, which is great. Like, first time we had friends over in so long. And we were talking, and the guy of the couple wanted to ask me questions about Amazon's antitrust issues. I mean, he's a lawyer, I'm not, otherwise asking me. And he kept, I think they need to be broken up. They're guilty of all these antitrust things. I said, well, what makes you say that? And he said, well, I was looking for, and I can't remember what the item was. I was looking for this item, and I tried to get it. I wanted to try and get it at the local supermarket, and they didn't carry it. And then I tried to get it at Home Depot, and they didn't carry it. And I went to Lowe's, and they didn't have it. So then I just had to go to Amazon. I mean, they've got to be guilty of antitrust. I said, well, wait a minute. How is anything that you just described an antitrust issue? And how is this? I mean, if Amazon hadn't had it, you wouldn't have it. So I don't understand where the problem is. And then he said, well, don't you think they have too much market power because I couldn't find it anyplace else? And I said, but isn't that a decision those companies made? We're not going to carry it because it doesn't sell enough, probably. I mean, I'm just going to guess. Amazon, they may only sell 12 a year, but they actually have it. I mean, I said, everything you just described to me is good for the customer, not bad for the customer.
And that's where Amazon will stand firm in any of these antitrust challenges. And I think they have a great leg to stand on. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's a better mousetrap, right? If you have a physical store with finite space, you have to make trade-off decisions on what to carry in there. Right. That's just natural. And if it's an item that's not going to move a lot, you don't want to take up that valuable shelf space for that item. It makes total sense. Well, Amazon doesn't have that constraint. They can stick it in, they can put one item in each of 12 facilities in the year in the case of having 12 items. And they can be close to, 12 different regions of the country and get it there in 2 days. And it takes up only a little tiny bit of space in a warehouse. And then when they slot things in warehouses, they don't get designated space. Like they sit in the same slot with a number of different items, so they can really pack items. They call that random stow. They can really pack a lot of density of items into those facilities. Like it's all part of the, I say master plan, that sounds devious, but it's all part of the master strategy of Amazon, to have more products in more places to be more responsive to consumer need.
Yeah. You just implied that Jeff Bezos is a Bond villain, but that's okay. I mean, I think a lot of people would agree with that.
You would a good one.
And I want to apologize to you in the audience. You may have heard a noise a couple of seconds ago. I didn't close the window because I want to let fresh air in, and a train actually train tracks are about 150 yards behind my house. So that's what the sound you just heard.
Yeah.
I mentioned that because somebody once said, "Who's flushing the toilet occasionally when you're doing your thing?" I said, "No, it's
Oh, that's funny.
not the toilet." Um, were there any surprises for you in the Amazon's Q1 numbers, which were just off the charts great?
I don't think so. I mean, this is the strategy. You saw where they excelled, right? They're doing a good job, I think, lapping or comping, the beginnings of the COVID surge
Right.
from last year, which, by the way, we predicted last year as Amazon was getting all this surge in volume. We said they're not going to lose that volume.
Right.
Like, the way the platform works is once you buy something from there and you get personally marketed from Amazon every time you go back there, you're just going to keep buying more stuff.
Right.
So, we predicted the surge would stick. I mean, yeah, they're going to have some tough comps in Q2, probably some tough comps in Q3, but they're still going to do really well. So, no, I don't think the retail business didn't surprise me. You see continued growth in AWS. They're the number one player there. They keep growing and investing and doing well in that business. And now you're starting to see the advertising business, really start to bear fruit. That's going to become, an even bigger and ultimately material part of the results. And in our world, that's before you start seeing their advancements in pharmacy and other healthcare services. And, there's a whole other, segment of Amazon that's going to ultimately be growing and making waves for the next phase of growth and, causing additional competitive pressures in our industry. So yeah, no, not surprised. I will not be surprised to see this type of growth continuing.
I got to imagine. I mean, when you talk about the comps in Q2 and Q3 will be tough. Well, probably why they're moving Prime Day into Q2, right? So that'll generate a lot of stuff. And the other thing is, over the years, there have been, they didn't always worry about, comps, right? Because if they had a quarter, because those cases they invested, and right, they didn't worry about it.
Yeah.
That was part of the long-term plan. I mean, that's Jeff Bezos saying, "No, I'm looking 2 and 3 years out. I'm not worried about this quarter." And when your stock price is over $33,000 a share, you have a little bit of room to negotiate, right? Or a little bit of
Well, yeah, I mean, Amazon's always called their own shots with Wall Street. And I know that frustrates other companies, but they've delivered on those promises, right? They've, and now, I mean, you remember last year, I think it was at this same earnings release last year when Jeff said, we're expecting $4 billion in additional COVID costs. So, kind of hang on.
Yeah.
And they did spend that. They still had a ridiculously bang up quarter and outperformed like crazy. They've always invested for the long term, and they think it's in the shareholders, best long term interest,
right,
to do so. And they're going to keep doing that.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting, and there was a Morning Newsbeat reader sent me this today. It's an investment note from a company called R5 Capital Research. Somebody named Scott Mushkin. And let's be clear, we're not suggesting investing. We're just this is one guy, so this is one view of the world. But I think it's interesting what he wrote. That even though the stock price is $3,314, as I say this to you, they are making Amazon a buy. And this is what they say. They say the reason for the change is management's decision to continue accelerated investments in infrastructure, which will serve, in our opinion, to virtually eliminate any major direct competition in North America broadline marketplace e-commerce. The staggering amount of spending should push down delivery times to less than a few hours on millions of products, abolishing the need to shop a retail store for virtually all everyday items and many durables too, for consumers who do not enjoy or have time to visit a store. The ability to get a product completely on the consumer's terms, and that's got to be magic right to Amazon's ears, when, where, and how they want, looks like it will be a reality in many North American metro areas within the next 24 months. And importantly, Amazon is the only company that will be able to deliver on this promise. I do think that seems a little, maybe a little rosy because it does underestimate the ability of Walmart and Kroger and Albertsons and a lot of other companies to do the kinds of things that Amazon is talking about doing and seems primed to do, no pun intended. But that also, I read that and I say, well, that would seem to be in line with where things have been headed. I mean,
Well, I mean, how much more stuff is coming to your house from Amazon than it used to? And you're probably noticing how much faster it gets there, right? Um, and that's not talking subscribe and save and all that, because that's on a regular cadence. That's set. Good thing is items that you get into those types of programs should be somewhat shielded from this Amazon shift. But it's that's just continuation of that master strategy that I mentioned earlier. Is just keep pushing more and more inventory closer to homes, so that it can be picked and packed and delivered by local route delivery, in a very short time. We were all amazed when that was consistently happening with large number of items in 2 days.
right.
Right. And it used to be a lot of items had to go on airplanes to be delivered in 2 days. Then it was like a lot less, and a lot more of what's happening locally. And now you find in many metros, you order one day, you get it the next.
Oh, it's amazing.
Um,
I mean,
and I know
and you
even
can order at 8 o'clock at night and have it by 10 o'clock the next morning, which is
oh,
like,
absolutely. Oh, yeah. Yeah. And in Arizona, I know that we have, some cases where we'll order in the morning and it's there in the afternoon and evening. So, again, that's a more advanced facility in a market that they're ahead on this strategy. But yeah, I think you're going to start seeing that in a lot more locales, and it's going to continue to put, more and more and more pressure on other retailers. Um, we always talk about, as a retailer, you got to think about the totality of your value proposition. You got to give customers reasons to want to come in the store for the types of services and sensory experiences. And, as much as ever, you really got to double down on that stuff. And, as you think about your e-commerce offerings, yeah, you want to be as responsive as you can. Same day, awesome. Next day, somewhat acceptable, but not really that acceptable. You got to get really good at same day, be it pickup or local delivery. And you got to offer capabilities like auto replenishment. Like you have to defend, the turf for those items that Amazon's pulling away. If you lose on 2 or 3 of those fronts, it's going to be a tough competitive market for you long term.
well, and it seems to me for competitors to Amazon, one of the key lines here is that, um, abolishing the need to go to the store for people who do not enjoy going to the store. And that is a key metric, it seems to me, that if your store is undifferentiated with undifferentiated products,
Yeah.
you have no right to expect that people are going to go there. And that's all. I think that's a hard one for a lot of retailers to accept.
Yeah, I mean, I would always say that, access to inventory was always like a competitive tenet of retailers, right? Having a store in a decent location that had the right products in it, that made it convenient for your customers to come to and get those products, ring them up at the front end and go home. That was a pretty good advantage for a while. But now that those same products can be purchased from any number of retailers, including Amazon, right, on that same day with, very, good, delivery terms, it takes that kind of distribution value or access value, kind of, it diminishes that with the store. Like that just becomes less important. So now the pressure gets put on other things, right? What other services can you provide? What other, value, advice, sights and smells, right? That kind of thing. What, different services, what, you got to find the value that you can provide there, because just having the inventory there, that's not going to cut it anymore.
Yeah. Sobering words, but and that's the reality we find ourselves in. Well, listen, you're on the road for a reason, so I'm going to let you go. Thanks as always for doing this. Thanks for all of you for watching, and we'll see you next time on the Innovation Conversation.